Good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to see each and every one of you for this pre-council meeting, and we'll turn it over now into the very capable hands of our city clerk.
This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, June 16th. We have approval of minutes from June the 9th.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Appeals, we have requests for waiver of the noise ordinance on June the 20th at Joe Bailey Park from 12 p.m. until 5 p.m. and on the corner of Halls Mill Road and McNee Drive from 12 p.m. until 5 p.m.
I'd like to ask Mr. President, if I could, I'd like to ask Councilman Small if he's heard anything from, and I haven't heard anything either from the residents around Joe Bailey Park. Still, I'd prefer to handle these on a week-by-week basis.
Mr. President, just to throw a wrench into the park discussion, there is also a noise waiver ordinance on the agenda for District 7 at Langen Park for multiple dates. And I mentioned that to Parks Director Shonda Smith to find out if she knew where he intended to set up. She knew nothing about it. Went to check to see if there was any sort of reservation made in his name, and there was nothing. And so I asked, oh, you mean he has to get some sort of reservation or a permit to be on park property to do this? And she said, oh, yes, no matter where he decides to set up. So Mary Ann called him this morning, and he had not gotten any sort of permit or reservation at the park. But he wanted us to go ahead and do the noise waiver first. And I said, no. In order to be a park, he has to have the correct reservation set up through the Parks Department. If he gets that, then I will consider his waiver. So, I mean, we can't put the cart before the horse. So I don't believe he's got any sort of reservations at the other parks either.
The other thing was the Bienville Square, and I think we all got an email from
Elizabeth.
the downtown,
Yeah.
director of the Downtown Alliance, being concerned about the 7 a.m. to 7, I think, what is it, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.? So Levon, were you looking that over from her request about being sensitive to?
I was. I got the email,
Yeah, we all did.
and what I'll do, I'm going to ask that we lay this particular item over so that I can have an opportunity to speak with Minister Pope
Okay.
and really ascertain what times he really would need. I'm all for the spreading of the gospel, but I am also for it being done appropriately, decently, and in order. And so I'm going to reach out to Minister Pope on this particular item. It appears as he's doing a citywide tour,
Yes.
is what it appears to
Apparently
be. And so I'm going to reach out to him between now and next week and gather what time he really needs. That's a lot of time for one particular event, from sun up to sundown, essentially,
And for so many,
for so many days, right?
Mr. President?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
couldn't really hear everything, so you're saying you're inviting the pastor to come next week to
Well,
speak,
I
or
can.
what?
I'm willing to invite him. What I was saying was relative to the item that I have, and I was remarking that he appears to be on a citywide tour. And so it may be that he needs to come down, that we can have an opportunity to talk with him and really have a better understanding as to how much time he needs. The item he's got in my district, well, in yours too, is
Yeah, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., yeah.
So if, Madam
That's
City
the
Clerk, if
longest.
you all could reach out to Minister Pope and ask him to come to next week's meeting so that we can get a better understanding of exactly what he needs to, in order to fulfill his mission.
Now, I know he wants to start July 4th at Langen, so having him come next week won't be any issue if
Right.
he can still get his noise waiver in time for, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, now, so on the Halls Mill and Joe Bailey Park, we've only got
one day.
one more date. Apparently, so we don't have this issue of the permit on Halls Mill.
You have less hours, too.
I hear what Councilwoman Gregory says. I just soon go ahead and approve the one Joe Bailey today and be done with it.
You can make it conditional.
Yeah, that's fine, that's good, thank you.
That, he gets the permit.
I don't have an objection to that. Mr. Davis, is that fine with you?
That's fine,
I mean-
thank you.
That's great.
We won't issue the letter to him until he gets the
Permit.
permit.
That's fine.
District 3 is not a park.
Yeah, I think also what the president had asked was to get better understanding of exactly what the hours will be, because 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., I don't believe, and Mary Ann's spoken with him again this morning, and he didn't indicate that he would be preaching or having the amplification all at that time period, maybe more like a 12 to 3 or something like that, but it probably would help to know exactly what he has planned and, how
It
long
would.
and
If
all
y'all
of
could
that.
reach out to him, we'd just like to meet him. Let's meet him.
Yeah.
If he's doing such a yeoman's job spreading the gospel, I'd like to know who's doing it. And be able to know that this is Mr. Pope, and he know who we are, and we know who he is. Well, I'd like to have him come down if he can.
That's fair.
Okay. Request for waiver of the noise ordinance on June the 27th from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. on Donald Street.
At least he's not trying to preach all day.
Oh, this is the person from Sims,
Yes,
coming from Sims to District 1.
yes.
Okay. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Justice Washington regarding the Confederate General Monuments and police brutality. James Williams regarding police conduct. Antonio Moore regarding task force on 21st century section on 5 things local governments can do. Wants to know which of any of these would the city council consider for the city of Mobile. Reggie Hill, Andre Davis will speak on mental health, public safety, and how successful future would make a needed difference in the city of Mobile. And then Reggie Hill will continue his comments from June the 3rd. And city business and public safety. Cedric Miles, subject the protest that took place downtown on May 31st. Were the 2 armed men who were there to stop the protests arrested, is his question.
Mr. Vice President? Is your microphone on? Mr. Westmore?
Okay, with the Cedric Miles, Mr. Cedric Miles coming down, I think what I had read that he's talking about about people coming down, I guess they was out there with guns or whatever. Is it possible that, I guess we can ask the public safety director, to speak on that, because they do have a right to bear arms, correct? Especially if they had like a gun permit?
They were, no, not at a demonstration.
Okay.
It's against Alabama law to bring a gun to a demonstration.
But I guess the ones that was carrying the gun, they wasn't at the protest or the demonstration. From honest, I think these was like bikers, or I think
No, they were there.
yeah,
They
were
wanted
there
to
for the
see-
protest.
yes, yes.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, when I saw that, I wasn't sure who he was referring to, didn't know if you did, Jimmy, or not.
Yeah, they were there.
There was some people that brought firearms down there. I know somebody had brought an assault rifle down there. They were asked to secure those weapons in their vehicles if they're going to be part of the protest, and we had voluntary compliance, so there was no arrest in conjunction with it. In the subsequent ones, people were warned ahead of time that we were going to be looking for guns, and they could not bring guns into a protest area, and So we had compliance after that.
So you will be able to just to him at 10:30 about that?
If you'll take down information, we'll be glad to contact him about
I
what
mean,
the
he's
law
coming down
is.
here to council meeting at 10:30 to speak, about that, so. Would you be able to address him at 10:30 when he come down here to council meeting?
I have a conflict at that point, so, but I'll be glad to talk to the guy if we'll get the contact information for him.
Can somebody,
Yeah.
can somebody
Can
else?
you have someone else to come to speak on behalf of that? Because
What exactly are we going to speak on?
he's,
Well, basically what you just said, because he's going to come down and ask some questions specifically regarding a couple of gentlemen who had guns apparently during the protest.
That information.
Okay.
Because there were several there, see if I'm saying this correctly, there were several people there with weapons, and they had voluntarily secured their weapons so that they could participate in the activity.
Correct. That's correct. We asked them to secure those weapons. No problems.
What
This
is the gentleman's
wrong
issue then?
information he has. He has wrong information, and the gentleman.
He has wrong information?
I guess so.
We don't know until we hear from him.
yeah, because the question that he has on here is say, were the two armed men who were there to stop the protest arrested?
They voluntarily secured their weapons, yes?
Anybody that we saw with a weapon was asked to secure those weapons in their vehicles if they're going to participate in that protest. And so, and that's pretty consistent. But there were no arrests made in conjunction with carrying a firearm at any of these protests. To my knowledge, everybody that we saw voluntarily died. And I was thinking specifically about a guy with an assault rifle that did take that weapon and put it up.
Yeah, because all we have is the two people who had, so we don't know who he's referring to or anything.
Well, and if he comes and he goes a different angle other than the answer that Councilman Williams will provide him,
Yeah.
then we'll get his information and get it over.
That's
Mr.
correct.
President,
Yes, sir.
I believe, I don't know nothing about this man, I haven't ever seen him. He probably gonna make the inference that had an African-American came down with weapons, he would have been arrested. Just mark my word, I don't know what he's gonna say.
Makes
That's
no sense.
probably where he's,
Not
so you
allowed.
got to be ready for that.
Yeah. Just like they can't bring it to the moon pie drop. Anytime people are
Right.
gathering, it's illegal
Right.
if it's a hosted type event.
Okay, we've got, and the possibility of having somebody here that's not in the cards.
Well, I guess, I mean, there were no arrests related in conjunction to the protest on Sunday. There certainly were no arrests related to firearms, so I don't know how else to explain that. People were asked to secure their weapons, and they complied,
Okay.
the ones we saw with weapons.
All right. Madam City Clerk?
Ordinance is held over. 02015, ordinance eliminating and replacing the word race on City of Mobile official forms and documents.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
have a committee meeting this afternoon at 1 o'clock, and we will meet here in the auditorium.
Sounds great.
So we're laying this over another week.
Yeah, at least a
At
week.
least, yeah.
We did get some information from Judge Whidden. I sent it to you this morning. They are sending out a questionnaire to all of the judges, asking for their input on various documents. I don't know how long it will take for them to get that information back to us. I seriously doubt we'll have it at 1 o'clock. So just want to let you all know that we'll be waiting on that information, and it may take a while to get it all back in.
I have received the forms from the departments for the City of Mobile that you use, so we've made copies, and we'll have those ready for the 1 o'clock meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So I thought I heard this, but let me just make sure. All the departments, because that was our request,
Yeah.
that have forms, you're holding them. So
Yes.
we can look them over and,
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of those that were submitted were, I received those.
will somebody from each of those departments be present to maybe
It was
clarify
requested.
reasoning?
Yeah.
It was
We
requested.
requested,
Okay,
yes.
so good. Okay, thank you.
CIP resolutions held over. 21416, authorized contract with Iker Construction Corporation for Hope Community Center Playground.
Progress all over District 2.
Resolutions held over. 01417, authorized agreement with Cyber Investigations and Intelligence Agency for cybersecurity risk analysis. 01418, authorized lease agreement with Dog River Marina and Boat Works for boat slip for Fire Department marine vessel. 21419, authorized contract with Skipper Consulting for St. Joseph Street Way conversion project design. 21420, authorized contract with Callis, Murphy, Glover and Associates for engineering services, maintenance, dredging of the channel at McNally Park. 21421, authorized contract with Delta Flooring for Harold L. Johnson Police Headquarters, Administrative Offices, flooring and painting.
Can I ask a question about this one? It's not technically a question about needing the carpet and everything. Is that it's been a while, but there was a study done about the feasibility of what could be done on that property for a police and fire presence, and there was an out-of-town firm that did all kinds of work. We never saw if it's finished, do we have that information? Because spending money if we're looking at making bigger improvements.
Yeah, that was the initial phase. It was a geosurvey of the site as well as space analysis, and so the next phase would be the actual architectural and engineering of the building. But I don't think that we've even settled on site selection. I think the site at the current location might have been very expensive, and so what we've kind of decided it's been hold before we spend more money on that project and trying to find out where that funding would actually come from. But we are proceeding with the idea of completing the relocation of First Precinct and the feasibility of doing that. And so that would be the next facility improvement as far as the police department. But the big building, the public safety building, is actually on hold until we can find the funding sources for that project.
So putting this painting and flooring is not going to be something that's going to be ripped up
Well,
within less than a year or anything like that.
You're years away
Yeah,
from
Okay.
anything.
Well, I just know that we never saw the results of the study. That's why
Right.
I'm asking.
And I could get you the analysis. It was really a
Interesting.
space analysis, so we could figure out the square footage as well as the appropriateness of the site and what it would, take to prepare that
Sure.
site, or to look at alternative sites.
Okay.
And
It just gives me an opportunity to ask where that was, so. Fair. I hope you would see it as
and
fair.
we'll make that report available to you. But again, it's space analysis
Okay.
on square footage that was needed.
Okay. Thank you.
08422, approved purchase order to Safeware for hazmat and radiation detection and response kits. 08423, approved purchase order to product vendor for encrypted data recovery software annual license. 08424, approved item-based bid with various vendors for industrial and safety supplies. Ordinance being introduced. 57016, ordinance to establish procedures and policies for the vacant of closure of any street, alley, or dedicated public right-of-way.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davis?
I would ask that this ordinance be referred to the Public Safety Committee for a hearing and discussion amongst the city council members and anyone else from the public who'd like to comment on it.
That is absolutely fine. If the chair of the Public Safety Committee could get with the members and let us know the date that committee could convene, I certainly believe it's a discussion we need to have and have an understanding as to what the features are. And so that's most appropriate, Mr. Davis.
Mr. President?
Mr. Vice President?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Mr. Davis a question, or Mr. Richardson. I can't remember the last time the discussion was brought up, but did we get like a census of what other cities like Montgomery, Birmingham, Huntsville, in the surrounding city, are they doing the same thing, or have they done the same thing, or, what is on their books off, streets? Do you recall?
I don't Councilman Small, I don't believe that, you know, the only time this has come up in the past is when we have had requests. And I don't recall our examining what other cities are doing in connection with those requests. But I think it's certainly something we'd want to see, and maybe Mr. Arledge could look into that and provide us some information when the Public Safety Committee meets.
Thank you.
If I could comment.
Ms. Rich?
We did have a public discussion, and it dealt with a barricade system in order to manage the traffic flow. At the time, our council attorney did do some work, and I hope it's in her file and that it could be shared. Tuscaloosa does the safety gates, and some of you have heard me mention this as a way to manage traffic flow. It allows police and fire, even sanitation, depending on the knock box that's put in place. But it's basically allows for only city officials and city personnel to utilize a corridor, but stops cut-through traffic in the neighborhood, which out in West Mobile is a problem, a real problem to people's quality of life. And a strict vacation would probably never be approved by any city council based on the criteria of a vacation, but rerouting traffic and getting a neighborhood safer with less cut-through traffic is really an ideal situation to stabilize and increase the value of someone's home and their reinvestment into the neighborhood. So that was something we did have a committee meeting on, but it kind of ended there. We heard from residents talking about their safety and ways that the city could manage it. So I appreciate this council looking at tools that could be used to help our neighborhoods. And of course, a vacation is still a process that people can bring forward to the council. That's always been a council action. But this is more managing traffic flow. So look forward to the meeting. Thank you.
87017, ordinance deeming property at 720 Museum Drive not now needed for public or municipal purposes and authorizing the lease between City of Mobile and St. Augustine LLC for parking area.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
Who's parking what on Museum Drive?
This is a very small space of land in between Clark Gear Latham and the Armory. We talked about this a while back. We've already passed, I can't remember what it was we passed the first time, Chris. So this is really the second phase to establish the payment. It's just a small piece of property in between. And they're going to use it, expand their parking. And so they'll be paying us for 5 years.
This is for their business trucks, or is it a limit?
It's not, it's just parking. Clark Gear Latham has inherited some new employees. They actually took on another firm into their footprint,
Okay.
and so they needed extra parking space. It's for 5 years. The rental payments escalate every year. It's not much. And we've already talked with the Armory and
No big trucks.
No. This is an architecture firm.
Okay. When we say parking,
Yeah.
always, my ears go up. We've got a real problem with trucks all over the city, just
Oh,
parking
no,
everywhere.
this is not 18-wheeler cabs or anything like that. This is just regular parking for employees.
It's a B1, they're B1 zone
Yeah,
business, I think.
And there is no impact to the Armory, anything like that. They're going to keep the fence up. They're going to put some nice big shrubs there to help shield it from the public. So, yeah, it's a good deal all the way around for the city and for them.
Mr. President,
Mr. Richardson?
if the land is no longer needed, why won't we put it up for sale? That's usually when we put land up for sale, when it's no longer not needed. Why are we leasing it instead of selling it? What are we holding it for? The city has made a great move to divest itself of property that is no longer needed.
Well, it's actually part of the Armory there, so they're probably just taking a part of it from the Armory, maybe saying they don't need it
Right.
for the Armory right now, and it's all city-owned property, so I don't know what the future use is for this big piece of property there at the Armory. So what they're doing is just moving the fence back, I don't know, 1,000 feet, something like that. It's not much, to allow for some more parking. I mean, if you've got questions of why they're not selling the property instead of renting it out for 5 years, I don't know the answer to that. But it's,
Is this, are you in favor of the item?
oh yeah, it's perfectly fine. Yes, I've been out there, I've seen it, I've talked to the folks at the Armory, I've talked to the people at Clark Gare Latham. There's really no problem with this. I don't see us selling a piece of property that's big enough for a car anytime soon to make a difference to anybody.
If you sell off a small portion, it might make someday, if you needed to get rid of the bigger portion,
Yes.
non-attainable. So rather than split it at this point, it's probably best to reserve some of it and just lease it.
Right, and it's only for 5 years, so if the city does decide to do something with the Armory and needs that property back, then within 5 years, it will revert back to the city anyway.
We won't be getting it back soon if we lease it. They're gonna make
It's
a
a
profit
5-year
out of it.
lease,
They're
that's
gonna-
It's a
all.
5-year lease,
They're taking a chance too, making the improvements.
yeah.
Madam City Clerk?
Consent resolutions being introduced, 58426 and 58427 are declaring weeds noxious and assessing costs for removal of weeds. 6428, determine the appropriation to the Rich Fitchfield Property Owners Association, serves a public purpose and approve payment, $10,000. 08429, approve purchase order to Atlantic Video Corporation for 18 mobile cart mounted conference systems for remote testimony, $31,045.50.
Mr. President,
Mr. Williams?
I questioned why that was, I didn't get an answer really, why it was consent. I know that I saw a note from a clerk who said that she'd really like to have it voted on today, but otherwise, I know nothing about the absolute necessity of approving this today. Is it already installed, maybe? Anybody know?
Carl? Anyone here that can, Mr. Payne? Is that you? Yeah. It's your item.
John.
Thanks, John.
It should be on now. At least I hit the button. Mr. Williams, if you could ask him the question again, please.
I simply just want to know why it needs to be voted on today.
They had asked us to go ahead and get this in place so the courts can get back to operation. But they would have the time to get all this stuff together.
We could say that argument on all things. The administration understands the
429.
argument. I mean, everybody wants to get back to operation fully, and, is this emergent? I mean, are we shutting down operations while we're waiting on this? Are they even ready to get back into operation? Do they have the clearance from the courts and all that? You see what I'm saying? Is everything in place except this? Do we know that? Or is it just a request to the court?
This is a request to the court to go ahead and try to get this moving over so they get the cases start moving again. I think, Reverend Morgan, firm has a whole lot of backlog cases waiting to be processed.
Is this also their attempt to move maybe all over to the Civic Center? Is this part of that?
That was circuit court.
I said let's vote on
Is that a particular issue you have with the item, John?
Well, just,
Mr. Williams?
it's the first time it's coming to the council, and we need to, if we're going to be consistent with when we pass things and when we vote on them, then there needs to be an argument for it being done today and not delayed until next Tuesday, so that it can have the visibility of the general public.
Well, this is two steps of mobile parts, as we call them.
I can't hear anything. I can't make any sense.
Is it on?
It's on.
Attorney in history been involved in part of this. Decision, you guys, if you want to hold on for another week, that's fine with us. We just push along with the best of the boards.
All right, that's the word right there.
And
It's so the
unless the administration comes forward before 10:30, then I'll just withhold unanimous consent. Because realize that I'm not being impartial to anybody. The same question goes for all things. It's either needed now or not, but it certainly is not a consent. But it may be that it should have been in another category, and we might have waived it a specific request. So I'll just...
Mr. President.
Mr. Public Safety Director?
Yeah, this video conferencing system is to allow officers to remotely testify at hearings is what it is. And so I guess the quicker we can get that installed at our precincts and at our different facilities, the more we can move cases along. We'll be meeting with the judges in Circuit District and Municipal Court tomorrow, along with the prosecutors, to make sure that we get the systems into the courtroom that can receive these video conferencing. And so we'll be meeting tomorrow morning with it, but you will see us coming to the City Council with various items so that we can begin the process of remotely testifying on hearings as we open our court systems back up.
This is just one piece of it, so I think 1 week will be okay.
This is one piece of a much larger system that we'll be coming
Gotcha.
to you about.
Awesome.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question, if I
Ms.
may.
Rich?
Thank you. The remote testimony, is that just because of COVID? I mean, will it be something that can be utilized after the vaccine is in place and we no longer have this pandemic?
And again, those discussions, but yes, it is a direct response to the pandemic, you know,
Right.
obviously, so that we can also, instead of transporting prisoners back and forth, we'll be able to set up virtual
Right.
courtrooms at the jail so that they can have their bond hearings right there and quickly. We'll also be setting up through the sheriff's satellite offices and the Mobile PD facilities so that officers can testify.
And does the law need to be changed in Montgomery to allow this remote type of testimony to take place? Because isn't it supposed to be within the physical compounds of a court
These
normally?
are not jury trials. These
I
are
see.
just hearings.
So it doesn't require any
That's
Montgomery
my understanding,
oversight?
and the judges are all in agreement we can handle this virtually.
Sounds really good, like a really efficient way.
And we are hopeful that, you know, in the future, we'll be able to do a lot of this and save a lot of time of officers traveling back and forth. But the idea is to reduce the number of people traveling on the elevators on the North Tower, and so, and, you know, the number of people coming to court. And so it's a lot more convenient for both the prisoners and the officers.
Yeah.
But the jury trial is something different. You know, the right to, you know, confront your accuser is still
Right,
the issue.
person to person.
And so, but this is just hearings. They're bond hearings, arraignments, they're preliminary hearings, the
So
grand
you see
jury.
it going into the future, in other words, not just a reaction to, it's a reaction, but it's something that could continue.
That's
if
correct.
You're going to spend money.
That's correct. But I think a lot of us have learned how to handle things virtually, remotely, and so maybe it will reduce the number of physical meetings in the future. And so,
Thank you, thank you.
City Clerk?
Council President has asked that we add 160-4447, determine an appropriation to Africatown Community Development Corporation serves a public purpose and approve payment $5,500. CIP resolutions being introduced, 13430, approved chamber number 1 for Baltimore Street and drainage rehabilitation from Ann Street to I-10 Service Road, deduct $90,660.05 from the original contract price. 41431, authorized contract with Watermark Design for Trinity Gardens Park improvements, $44,200. 21432, authorized contract with Kimley Horn and Associates for Sam Stott's Park improvements, phase $46,250. 21433, authorized contract with WAS Design Inc. for Tricentennial Splash Pad improvements, $21,500. Yes.
It's just a change in the contract. It's over, we're just fixing it up for the record. The price of the deduction.
Yeah, on the Baltimore Street project, well, this project is just getting started. There's basically some value engineering done to try to avoid some of the where does this happen? Got a good one here, so, just the money that had to go.
Resolutions being introduced, 01434, authorize intergovernmental agreement with Mobile County Commission for resurfacing, restoration, and rehabilitation of Solly Road from 3 Notch Corner Road northward to Cottage Hill Road. 08435, approve purchase order to Locution Systems for annual software license and maintenance agreement, Prime Alert dispatch mapping software, $25,006. 08436, approve purchase order to Toomey Equipment for tractor for the Azalea City Golf Course, $60,032. 08437, approve purchase order to NEC Corporation for America for annual maintenance of fingerprint ID system, $17,264. 08438, approve purchase order to Emergency Equipment Professional, Inc. to replace pump and fire pumper truck, $27,391. 08439, approve item-based bid for electrical and traffic supplies. 08440, approve purchase order to CDW Government LLC for video recording server with accelerated storage card, $24,659.22. 21441, authorized contract with Dell Consulting for Spanish Plaza lighting upgrades, $15,500. 21442, authorized contract with James H. Adams and Son Construction Company for the Cottage Hill Road culvert repairs at Milkhouse Creek, $245,344.
I have some questions about this.
Ms. Rich?
I believe this belongs in CIP, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
The CIP funded the Alabama Trust Fund, there was an allocation council made a few months back.
Okay, so leave it where it is. Okay.
Between or so, I mean, since the funding was
Mixed.
trust fund,
Okay, thank you.
25443, grant easement to Alabama Power Company to replace primary conductors from Claiborne West to Lawrence and north to Eslava Street, Mobile Civic Center. 35444, authorize the lease with the Distinguished Young Women for the Quigley House, 751 Government Street. 6445, approve settlement agreement and release of claims, Kenneth Gatton. Call for public hearings, 41446, call for public hearing to rezone property located at 3945 and 3949 Government Boulevard and 1251 Azalea Road, southeast corner of Government Boulevard and Azalea Road, from B2 to B3, scheduled July 14th. Announcements.
Mr. Williams? Any announcements from members of the council in general at this point?
Mr. President, I do have one quick one.
Yes, ma'am.
Since Director Barber won't be here for the regular meeting, I just wanted to say thanks for your help on the roosters issue. The woman who contacted me had been calling different departments and reporting it for a long time and was very frustrated. And so I called Director Barber, or emailed Director Barber, and he said he'd take care of it. Got an email back from the woman. She said within 24 hours it was taken care of. So thank you very much.
That's great. Mr. Mayor, any announcements on your part? Okay, if not, we'll see each other at 10:30.
No, I have something
I'm
I'd
sorry,
like to
sure.
bring up. Yeah. The Sims statue, the council was approached by a group, and they originally started with the administration. I think that's a very public discussion that has merit. My office was only told not to talk about the statue, so I honored that in a request that was verbally given. But right now, I think since so many decisions were made that didn't involve, well, I'll say my office, I don't know, maybe other council members were very acutely aware of the issue. I only learned things after the fact. And so when I was approached by a representative of ancestors and descendants, Sims family and people who have their own perspective. They approached the administration but didn't get very good read and an opportunity to go public. So by bringing it to the council, I guess they thought that that would allow this public exposure, and I do think it's worth that exposure to have their idea and request. Their first request, of course, was to not take the statue down. I think that's not going to ever be a win for them in that regard. But if they want that statue on their own private property, I think, again, that has great merit, and they should have been able to be heard in this community equally as those that want it totally gone. So, and I'm not sure the museum is the right place based on community response. That's a building, people have to pay to go in it, and that they might find it very distasteful. We have Lady Liberty in there. That statue's magnificent. We're very fortunate to have that in our museum. And we have artifacts from Admiral Sims that are already there. It's already noted his participation in the Civil War. And again, I really hope that there's an opportunity, since the council's been approached, and the ownership of the statue was questioned, and rightfully so, on who owned it. And the city, by prescriptive rights, by all means, sitting on city property, but we all got, or I at least I did, I'm not sure I shared it, but documentation that this group gifted it back in 1900. It was going on all over the state, where there was an honoring of Civil War officials throughout our state. And in 1897, they started raising money. And in 1900, they accumulated their money. They had the statue commissioned, and it's all recorded. So it's very much a lineage there. And again, I think that if we're really going to talk about this, if we're really going to solve this as a community, then all people of interest on both sides of the aisle deserve to be heard. And I hope the council will entertain that request that they made. I don't know if it would pass, but it's something that, like I said, they have a right at the table, regardless of what they believe, what they feel. History is history. We could argue about all that. My ancestors were recently put in ovens for their Judaism, so I'm acutely aware of pain and suffering of being signaled out. I get all that. I certainly, it's very close to me. But I, think that people have a right to be heard. And I was disappointed that my office, who represents the public, didn't have an opportunity rather than just directives and information after the fact. So if there's anyone else that wants to chime in, but I feel like I owe this to the community on both sides of the aisle.
So what exactly would your request be, Ms. Rich?
I think we need to hear from the group that made the request to have it returned to their private property with no public display.
All they got to do is call that lady right there.
Right, but they have made this request already to all council people.
No one has made that request to me.
You didn't get the letter?
No one has made that
You
request to me.
didn't get a letter?
I did not get a letter.
You should have. Every council person got a letter.
All they have to do, they want to talk to us, is call that lady right there.
Right, but decisions are being made, and I's are dotted and are crossed without the community at the table. Again, this is a community discussion. And so I would like to, I'll take the privilege of inviting the people, or I know only the one that was the signature.
You were the only one, what now?
The signature who made the request.
Oh.
I think that's a member of your community.
Oh,
Mr.
yes,
Mancy.
I did receive a letter from Mr. Joe Ringhofer. who does live in District 2, and I have had a discussion with him relative to the request of, I believe it's the Sons of the Confederate Veterans, Raphael Sims, Chapter 11. I may not have it exactly right. And they are serious about and interested, and they did disseminate a letter to all council persons. I don't know if maybe Mr. Daves was not on that letter. Let's talk between now and 10:30, and it may be that we ask that they come down and make a presentation. It may be that we assign this to committee. Let's talk between now and 10:30, and we'll have a firm path forward by then, if that's amenable to members of this council.
I would hope it would be public discussion.
Yes,
What
yes,
happens?
ma'am. Any further discussion or announcements? If not, I'll see each other at 10:30.